Part 39. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 381. It was said by Master Tianzun, Mr. Qian, who had been paying attention to the side, put down the dustpan and affirmed, when Manbao was just 1 year old, I had a dream. Master Tianzun said that our family is full of treasures. The smartest person within 100 miles, but we only say this in our own home, and we dare not say it outside. The villagers who were still sitting on the next block of land burst into laughter and said happily, Aunt Jian, Manbao didn't listen to you. I remember I heard her talk about it a few years ago. Ha ha ha. She also said that her friend said it, so it was my aunt who said it. Qian, she said calmly, she was right. She said she wanted to be friends with everyone, but this child must have said that because she was afraid that it would spread to my ears and be beaten by me. Do you want to beat Manbao now, auntie? You, the villager's mother-in-law couldn't help but pushed him and said, Manbao is the reincarnation of a fairy. You dare to encourage my aunt to fight Manbao, and see if Master Tianzun finds you to settle accounts at night. Yang Heshu. Manbao. Bai Shanbao and Bai Erlang. So far, including Manbao, they still haven't believed this enough. Yang Heshu didn't have much to ask. He felt that he couldn't stay with the old Zhou family for too long, otherwise he would be affected. Zibai was eccentric and confused. He didn't think that Laozi was really an immortal watching them in the sky, and he even accepted a fairy under his seat. Well, I heard that the Bodhisattva of the Buddhist family has a fairy under the seat, and does the Tai's Hanglajun also have it? Yang Heshu shook his head and eliminated the strange thoughts in his mind. Then he smiled and said to Manbao, I wonder if you can take me into the village for a walk. Okay. Manbao looked at Shichen and felt a little hungry, so he generously invited him, would you like to go to my house for lunch? She shouted to the ground, sister-in-law, have you left me any food? No, MRSGN said, but your third and fourth sisters-in-law are at home. When you are hungry, go back and ask them to cook something for you. Qian Shi also waved, go back. Manbao didn't want to eat what the third and fourth sister-in-law made, so he looked at Bai Shanbao. Bai Shanbao didn't think about it anymore. He felt that their craftsmanship was not as good as that of the home cook, so he said, then go back to my house and eat well. Yang Heshu couldn't help but nodded again and again, that's right, your family is poor, what kind of guests are you going to invite? Isn't this a big family? Everyone saw him nodding constantly and looked at him one after another. Yang Heshu coughed lightly and said, I heard that Master Bai has a good reputation in the village, so I happened to stop by for a visit. Bai Erlang said, that's my father, not his father. Yang Heshu, you can go to your house. The group walked back to Bai's house. When walking down the river at the entrance of the big village, Yang Heshu couldn't help but stop and sighed, your river is good. With a river, irrigation will be much easier. Yeah, Li Zheng said that although our village is poor, our village has a river, and if there is a river, you will not die of starvation, and you will die of starvation a few days later than others. Yang Heshu, do the people here speak so sharply? He looked left and right and asked, isn't there a canal to go over there? It refers to the largest field. Looking around, except for a few scattered mountains, that field is an endless field. Yes, there are two. Only two. Manbayadao, two are good. Last year, everyone wanted to save food, so they didn't do labor, and they didn't repair the water conservancy in the village. In previous years, the county government was conscripted, and there was no time to repair the water conservancy in the village. Is your village's water conservancy not within the scope of the county government's labor? Manbao said, my father said that we are remote here, and adults can't remember. That's not it, Bai Erlang retorted, my father said it was because our family lived here, and the adults in the county wanted my father to pay for the repairs for free, so that the county government would not have to spend money. Bai Shanbao obviously heard what Master Bai said and expressed his solidarity with Bai Erlang. Uncle Tang said that he paid for the repair of several large canals in the village. Give money to buy food for everyone. Bai Erlang nodded. My father is distressed. Yang Hesha didn't know whether to praise the master for his kindness or praising him for being stingy, so he could only smile back. Master Bai is playing chess with Mr. Zhuang. Mr. Zhuang now has only 3 disciples, so his teaching is easier, and he doesn't even have to follow the previous pace. Man Bao and Bai Shanbao can take courses together, but the focus of extracurricular reading will be slightly different, which is not difficult for Mr. Zhuang. Bai Erlang's class is easier. This kid learns slowly, so he has to slow down in class, but perhaps Mr. Zhuang is more attuned to his pace now, and he learns better than he used to in the school. Now he only instructs them to write in the morning, gives them a lesson in the evening, and spends a lot of free time in between. Mr. Zhuang occasionally went to the field to see the situation of several disciples' farms, but more often he read books by himself in the small courtyard, or came to see Master Bai to play chess, drink, and talk. Yang Heshu had heard about the 2 of them for a long time, and they came to Qilai village specially to meet Master Bai. Even Mr. Zhuang did it by the way. However, after meeting Mr. Zhuang's 3 disciples, he felt that Mr. Zhuang would not be able to watch it in the future. Mr. Bai is the most famous and largest landlord in Beimaguan town. When Yang Hesha came to the county seat, he came quietly. After he came here, apart from having a meal with the squires in the county, he had not had time to meet the squires in the countryside. No. Bai Shanbao would help Yang Heshu hide from the villagers, but he would not hide Master Bai and Mr. Zhuang, so before he got to the door, he whispered a few words in Bai Erlang's ear. Bai Erlang was too lazy to pay attention to him, so he knew that he had a bad temper again, so he looked at Man Bao. Man Bao coughed lightly and said with a stern face, "Junior brother, don't you listen to my brother's words." Man Bao took out 2 candies from his pocket and gave him a wave. Go ahead. Bai Erlang took the candy, and ran to the house. After he ran into the yard, he shouted loudly, Dad, Yang County Magistrate is here to see you. Yang Heshu. He glanced sideways at the 2 children who were not squinting, and remained silent. Master Bai and Mr. Zhuang put down their chess pieces and greeted them from the door. They cupped their hands from a distance and said, when the distinguished guest is coming, Mr. Bai has lost his way to welcome him. Looking closer, seeing that Yang Heshu was very young, he couldn't help being stunned for a moment. Mr. Zhuang's eyes were worse than that of Master Bai, and he could only see Yang Heshu's face when he got to him. Such a young county magistrate is either from a good family background or very talented. Of course, the biggest possibility is that they have both. Therefore, Mr. Zhuang is also very happy to bow his hands. Zhuang has seen the county magistrate. Yang Heshu hurriedly held the hands of the 2 of them, gave them another salute, and said with a smile, Master Bai and Mr. Zhuang are very polite. It was Yang who came uninvited. It would be better if the 2 of you don't mind. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 382. Man Bao rolled the noodles and ate some vegetables, and occasionally looked up in the direction of Master Bai and the others. Mr. Bai and the others did not let the 3 children eat in front of them, but sent them back to the house, while they drank and ate under the peach tree in the yard, chatting by the way. Yang Heshu only knew that there was a Bai family in Qilai village, but he didn't know when there was another Bai family, so he asked curiously. Master Bai smiled and said, my cousin Bai Chi once served as a county magistrate in Yizhu, but he died young, leaving behind my aunt and a pair of orphans and widows. The family came to live here, but the household registration is still in Longzhou, and this right should be just another courtyard of their family. As soon as Yang Heshu heard it, he understood that this must have been rejected by the clan, and maybe it also involved a dispute over property, so he hid here. So he smiled and said, It's a good idea for the two families to live closer to each other so that they can take care of each other. Yang Heshu and Mr. Bailai, Mr. Zhuang, can be considered to have a good conversation. After coming to Lujiang County for so many days, there are not many people who can talk to him, let alone the people who have met in the countryside in the past 2 days. It is the local Lijhan, except for some agricultural matters, they are not very good at answering the rest of the topics. By the time Yang Hesha came out of Bai's house full of food and drink, the three of them were already talking and laughing at Yan Yan, as if they were confidants. His entourage walked out of the White House first, and when he waved his hand, a carriage turned from the side, and Master Bai said in surprise, "I don't know if the magistrate Yang brought a car, but I also asked the servants to give it to the magistrate Yang. I have a carriage ready, but it seems that I can't use it." Yang Hesha smiled complacently and said, "This car is walking in the back. Since we are visiting the countryside, we shouldn't be too ostentatious." Man Bao, who was standing in the back, couldn't help but think, since it's not easy to publicize, shouldn't it be riding a donkey, or traveling directly in an ox cart? Who can afford a horse? Man Bao looked at Yang Hesha's horse with envy. When will she be able to include a horse for Keek? Master Bai thought so too, but he was relieved when he saw Yang County Magistrate's face. He looked like a fledgling boy, and he must not have thought so carefully. Yang Hesha didn't forget the three children, especially Man Bao and Bai Shanbao. He still liked and admired these two children, so he invited them and said, "If the three little friends go to the county seat, I invite you to come to my mansion as guests. As a reward for your hospitality today." Man Bao said there was no problem, and quietly said to Bai Shanbao, "Although I often go to the backyard of the county government office, I have never entered the place where the side door is 100 paces away." Bai Shanbao said, "I don't even have one. Next time, let's take a look." Sister Fu said that the garden inside is very beautiful. Bai Shanbao expressed doubts, "Better than mine." Man Bao hesitantly said, "It should be, after all, your home has only been built for more than 2 years, but the county government has been built for a long time." When Yang Hesha saw that the two children had ignored him, they began to whisper to themselves, and couldn't help but smile stiffly. Forget it, they were still children. It wasn't until Yang Hesha got into the carriage that the two children realized, "Hey, the distinguished guest is leaving." So the two of them and Bai Erlang waved goodbye to him together, and Man Bao also warned, "Yang County Magistrate, you must remember the matter of the cattle on credit. If the regulations are set, let someone inform me, and I will be the first. One came into town to support you." Yang He Shuzong smiled and said, "Okay, I'll let you know." Man Bao waved his hand attentively, and didn't let go until the carriage crossed the river. Mr. Bai went to see Man Bao curiously, while Mr. Zhuang asked directly, "I also heard from the county magistrate Yang that you want to buy a cow on credit with the county government, but why don't you buy the cow on credit directly, but first credit silver, and then what about the cattle on credit?" When Man Bao opened his mouth to say, Keek coughed lightly in her mind, and Man Bao covered his mouth and said, "I can't tell you now, too many people will leak the secret." Mr. Zhuang smiled and said, "Okay, don't say it, we will know when you bring the cow back." Man Bao feels that it will take a long time. After all, it takes time to adjust cattle, right? As a result, they had just finished planting the wheat here, and only then settled the wages to the day laborers. After the cold night passed, Li Zheng came to inform them. The county government bought a batch of cows and came back, thinking that farming is difficult for big guys, so the newly arrived county magistrate decided that any poor family can go to the county government to buy a cow back on credit, as short as half a year, as long as the money and interest for the purchase of cattle will be paid off within 3 years. Man Bao stood not far from his father's feet. After listening to it, old Zhutuk felt that this matter had nothing to do with him, so he took out a cigarette bag from his waist, and thinly twisted some shredded tobacco into the pipe and started smoking. Someone who is excited asks, "How does this poor family count?" It's very simple. There are no cattle in the family. In addition to houses, there are only Yanjai Tian in Henji, and those who have never bought any land are counted. Yes, the vast majority of people in Qilai village are in line. What will the farmer's family do with the extra money? Marrying a daughter-in-law, but this is a grand plan for reproduction and one of the basic needs of survival. Of course, it cannot be considered rich. So what do you do when you have a wife and still have money? Raise children. Well, this is also a grand plan for reproduction, and it also cannot be considered rich. And if there is more money after raising a child, each family has their own plans, but there are only three categories left: one is to buy cattle, the other is to buy fertile land, the third is to buy a shop. This is Yang Hesha's experience in the past 20 years, plus the conditions limited by this period of understanding. Not to mention, many people in the village were heartbroken. As for a cow, at least it can cover 2 strong laborers in the family, so some people raised their hands to sign up, but some people asked loudly, "Lijhan, what is the interest rate?" 1 tael of silver and 12 yuan a month. As soon as these words came out, the person who raised his hand immediately retracted his hand, and then whispered to the people around him, "It costs 12 cents per month, how much does it cost to buy a cow?" He stood not far from Lijhan, and Lijhan's ears were still very good. When he heard it, he coughed lightly and said, "A cow, depending on its size and strength, is probably between 3 or 200 to 5 taels. Just take the middle data for 4 or 2. Then, how much interest is there for 4 or 2 a month?" The Li Long stretched out his hand and counted with his fingers, and the villagers were all waiting eagerly. After taking a puff of cigarette, Lao Zhuto lowered his head and asked Manbao, "How much does it cost?" 48 characters. Old Joe slapped his mouth and said, 48 when, 48 a month, how much will it cost in half a year? And it may not be possible to pay it back after half a year. How much will it cost after 3 years? Manbao thought for a while, and after a while, he said, 1,728 texts. Old Joe Tiu choked on the smoke. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 383. The villagers who listened with pricked ears were also frightened. After a while, someone shouted, "My dear, then if this is 2 cows on credit, the interest after 3 years will be enough to marry a wife." Manbao said, "Don't you get 5 taels of silver for marrying a daughter-in-law? This is only more than 3,400. Hey, if you are a girl from any family, you can spend 5 taels of silver. If you are from a poorer family, you can give a dowry gift of a dime, and use the rest to hold banquets. You can save a lot of more than 3,400 taels of silver. Oh, my dear, the interest on 2 cows on credit is more than 3,400 cash. Is the county government trying to steal money?" Manbao, the amount will be in 3 years, but why do you have to pay it after 3 years, and it will be fine if you don't pay it after half a year. It's not certain whether God will reward you with food or not this year, so you dare to spend 4 liang of silver for nothing. Old Zhou Tiu said slowly, "If God doesn't reward you, we won't have any more land, and people won't be able to eat it by then. Let's forget about the meal, and still owe such a large amount of money outside, it's terrible." "Yes, yes," the villagers echoed the words of old Zhou, "you can't take such a risk." As a result, the people who were still a little bit excited immediately died down. Lijhan knew that this would happen. When he received the news yesterday, he first talked about it in Dali village, but no one was willing to go on credit. Zhou, who also hesitated a little, squeezed out to find Manbao, saw that Manbao had finished listening to the announcement, and was walking back behind her father with his little hands behind his back. One old and one young, one with a bong behind his back, the other with his neck up and his hands behind his back. Zhou Hu hurried to catch up, grabbed her and asked in a low voice, "Manbao, do you still have credit?" Manbao nodded, "Of course it's on credit, I think I can still afford it." Zhou Hu hesitated, he was afraid that, as Uncle Jin said, if God didn't reward him, he wouldn't be able to make it this year. No, even if God favors him, he may not be able to pay it this year, at least until next year. But it is much more convenient for his family to have a cow. Needless to say, he can plow the land by himself without asking the Zhou brothers for help. Zhou Hu hesitated. Manbao saw that he was so entangled, so he whispered in his ear, "Let's go to the city tomorrow to take a look, maybe we can have a way to erase this year's interest." Zhou Hu looked at her in surprise, "How do you wipe this off?" Manbao smiled like a little fox, "You will know when the time comes." After that, he ran to chase her father. Old Zhou Tiou was almost home, and when he saw his daughter rushing back, he asked, "What did you talk to Zhou Hu for so long?" Manbao remembered that he hadn't told his father that she wanted a cow on credit, so he said, "Father, I'm going to the county seat tomorrow, and I'll bring you back a big gift then." Old Zhou asked with a smile, "What kind of gift?" "I won't be surprised if I say it." "Okay, you go." Old Zhutu never stopped her from going to the county seat, and said with a smile, "Tomorrow your second brother will go to the county to sell tofu and bamboo basket dustpans, so let your fourth and fifth brothers go with you. God, it's cold, and they have nothing to do at home." Manbao answered. "Vegetables are scarce in spring. Qian and Xiao Qian have just planted the vegetable seeds not long before they sprouted. Because of the cold spring, they just hugged some straw and carefully covered it. They planned to wait for the cold spring to pass before removing the straw. So now, in addition to dried vegetables and pickled vegetables at home, there are wild vegetables in the field." Manbao doesn't like to eat wild vegetables very much, he always finds it bitter. Of course, if Xiaoqian's made it, he could barely eat it. Qian guessed that the people in the city had no food to eat now, so he bundled several bundles of wild vegetables from the wild vegetables picked by Datu and put them in bamboo baskets, and asked Zhou Lang to take them to try tomorrow. "Sell it if you can sell it, take it back if you can't sell it, and our family will eat it for ourselves." Zhou Lang disliked it very much. "Just take back a few wild vegetables and eat them, just look for them in the field. Do you think it's easy to find wild vegetables now?" Mrsgn thumped him, drove him away, and said, "Many people in the village now have more wild vegetables than steamed buns. They are very hard to find wild vegetables, and only our family has more children, to find more." Old Zhou Tiou also nodded, "That's right, so from tomorrow onwards, our family should eat thin meals for 3 meals a day, and we won't be working in the fields anymore, so why eat so much?" Old Zhou looked at Xiao Qian and said, "When cooking noodle soup, put more water and less noodles. Xiao Qian should go down." Old Zhou looked at the grandchildren who were squatting and writing in the yard, thought for a while and said, "Make more tofu tomorrow, and save some for the family. It's not expensive and tastes good. Our beans aren't there many more. Then I'll soak some more beans tonight." Old Zhou nodded, satisfied, and knelt down to touch his old smoking gun. The next day, Manbao ate tofu now, steamed eggs, and half a bowl of noodle soup. She has grown up now, and with the exercise during this period, she can walk from Qilai village to the county seat by herself. Zhou Hu had been waiting at the entrance of the village early in the morning, and when he saw the Zhou brothers arriving, he followed him, and even helped Zhou Lang push the cart. Only on Tuesday did Lang know that Zhou Hu was also going to the county seat, so he asked curiously, "Sister-in-law's medicine is gone?" "No, I'll go into the city and ask about credit cattle." He felt that Manbao was right, and he had to go to the city to have a look. If there was a way to offset this year's interest, he would even want to get credit. Tuesday Lang was surprised, "You want credit?" Joe was even more surprised, "Don't your family also want credit?" Tuesday Lang pushed the car and almost fell into the ditch. His eyes widened, and he turned his head to look at Man Bao immediately. Man Bao proudly said, "That's right, this is a great gift from me to my family. Second brother, when we have cattle, how many acres of land can we cultivate intensively?" Jojo Lang hesitated and said, "But this matter is too big, have you told your parents?" Jojo Lang had already shouted excitedly, "What are you talking about? If you tell Dad, you won't be able to get credit. I think it's better to buy a cow. With a cow, we don't have to pull the plow. The main reason is that it's faster. If it wasn't for Dad's decision in the family, I want to credit." Jojo Lang glared at him, "What if it's still not up? It's 3 or 4 taels of money." Jojo Lang thought for a while and said to Man Bao, "Man Bao, don't be afraid, at worst, when the ginger in my field is sold in autumn and winter, the fourth brother will sell you some." Man Bao became happy, nodded quickly and said, "Okay, I remember the fourth brother, but you don't have to worry, I have already told Shan Bao that we have also circled a piece of land to plant ginger, which is right next to the ditch. The land is fertile, well drained, and easy to water. There are about 2 acres, and when the time comes to plant all ginger, it will definitely sell for a lot of money. There is another chapter at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 384. Jojo Lang was stunned, and asked, "Where did you get so many ginger seeds?" He didn't remember that the family left so many ginger seeds for her. "I told my sister-in-law that more than half of the ginger pieces buried under the vegetable garden were given to me, and a lot was buried in Shanbao's flower garden. I also bought some from the mall, but Manbao would not say this. Anyway," she waved her little hand and said, "Anyway, enough." Jojo Lang nodded again and again, "It's as long as you have a plan in mind." He felt that even if the gods didn't reward him this year, if the ginger could be grown, he would be able to sell it for a lot of money. Zhou Lang knew how valuable ginger was. Moreover, the harvest of 1 acre of ginger is also quite large, as can be seen from the 5 or 6% of the ginger land produced by the fourth child last year. Zhou didn't know how profitable ginger was. The year before last, his family bought a few pieces of ginger from the old Zhou's family and planted them. After 2 years of planting, it was enough for the family to eat now. "Especially now that my wife is not in good health, the doctor said that more ginger can be used to cook some brown sugar, so the ginger at home is not enough. But if you ask Aunt Jian, you can usually take a few yuan home." Zhou thought about it, and decided to grow some ginger in the vegetable garden after returning home, at least to ensure that there was enough for the family. Zhou was contemplating, but Zhou Lang jumped up and shouted, "You planted 2 acres? Then in autumn and winter, can so much ginger be sold? Can the price be crushed to death?" Man Bao said, "Ginger can be used as a medicinal material, and the pharmacy has been collecting it. I plan to dry it and sell it to the pharmacy." After Man Bao's voice fell, Keek suddenly popped up and said, "Host, dry ginger is made from old ginger that has been grown for 2 years, not fresh ginger that is a year old, so you have to make dry ginger, wait not until next fall." Man Bao was stunned for a moment, then turned his head and said to Jojo Lang, "Fourth brother, why don't you sell ginger this autumn? Let me sell it, keep your ginger, and dig it next autumn. I just thought, look, dry ginger is made from 2-year-old ginger." Thursday Lang opened his mouth wide. Man Bao said, "In fact, the price of dry ginger is also very high." Jojo Lang said quietly, "Your little nephew is about to be born, are you planning to let him have no new clothes for the first year?" Man Bao. Zhou Lang ignored them. "Anyway, the old Zhou's family must grow the most ginger in the county now. Whether it is the fourth brother, Yaomei, or the third brother, they are all from their own family anyway, and all the money they earn goes into their own pockets. So he wasn't worried at all. Zhou, who didn't quite understand what they were talking about, let alone express his opinion. Wu Wulang has always stood by Man Bao's side, and quietly said to Man Bao, "Tell your parents, let them support you." Zhou Lang heard it, and he rolled up his sleeves to beat Wu Wulang. "I'm so good to you, last time I touched the bird's eggs, I gave you 2 more. Is that how you treat me?" Man Bao called, "5 brothers, run." The 2 brothers fought and ran away. Zhou, who was so envious, he said to Zhou Lang, "It's good to have more brothers. Not only can we help each other, but it can also be more lively on weekdays." Like he was the only one in his family, and the family fell down, and there was no one to help. Zhou Lang raised his head and smiled at him, "You feel lively now, but you don't know how annoying they are when they make trouble. Anyway, what the old Zhou family lacks most is excitement, and what it lacks the most is quietness." When he arrived at the county seat, Zhou Lang didn't bother to let them follow, he just waved his hand and told them to go about their own business. He was going to set up a stall to sell things. "But I also told Man Bao, if the cow is too expensive, more than 4 taels, don't buy it." Zhou, who also hesitated, "Otherwise, let's go to the bull market to see the market first. What if the county government's cattle are more expensive than the bull market?" Man Bao felt that what he said made sense, so he followed him to the bull market. The bull market is a not too long street, where relatively large livestock such as cows, horses, donkeys, and mules are sold. Well, there are also pigs. Lujiang County is so big, so there are not many people selling cattle. They walked from the street to the end of the street, only to see 3 cows, one of which was still lying on the ground, struggling to eat a handful of young grass from the owner's hand. Man Bao squatted down to look curiously. The person holding the cow rope only glanced at her clothes, then looked away, and said calmly, "This cow is too old. It is sold for killing, not for farming." "How old is it?" The master sighed and said, "It must be 15 years old. When I bought it, the seller said it was 6 years old and he was in the prime of life. It has been in my house for 9 years. Man Bao was speechless. Then there was a calf standing next to it. The person holding the rope said that it was 2 years old and could go to the ground to do some light work. The other one is a steer in the prime of life, about 6 years old, but the asking price is also high. Zhou, who asked, "It costs 4 or 200 yuan. The 4 of them withdrew from the bull market, and Zhou, whose confidence was greatly hit. He whispered, "It's too expensive." Man Bao dragged them towards a pawn shop, walked to the counter, stood on tiptoe and only showed a small head. She asked the clerk inside, "How much copper can 1 tael of silver exchange for now?" The man glanced at her, then looked at the 3 young men behind her, coughed lightly and said, "Look at the fineness of the silver, if it's good, it can be exchanged for 1,300 yuan, and the difference is only about 1,500 yuan. What about the official bank? That's $1,200. Man Bao nodded to show that he understood, waved goodbye to the buddies, turned around and dragged them into a bank to ask again, and after getting the same answer, he dragged Zhou to the county government. "Let's go and see the county government's cattle first. If it's good, we'll credit it." The cattle of the county government are of course not in the county government office, but in an open straw shed next to the county government office. This was originally an open space, but now a grass shed has been set up for the cattle to rest, and it is specially for people who come to credit cattle to watch. There are more than 20 cows standing in the straw shed. Although the place is small, it is more like a bull market than a bull market. Man Bao's eyes sparkled, and he took out his household registration from his bag and asked Zhou Lang to sign up to see the cows. Looking at the household registration in his hand, Man Bao opened his mouth and asked, "Where did you come from? Isn't this something that Dad has always held? I asked my mother to bring it for me. Does that mother know what you are going to do?" Man Bao thought for a while and said, "I didn't tell mother, but mother told me that the money at home is enough to pay back." Jojo Lang was relieved when he heard it, but he still felt a little weird. He looked Man Bao up and down, and said hesitantly, "Man Bao, you are not really the reincarnation of a fairy under the seat of Master Tianzun, are you?" Since his mother recovered from her illness, he always felt that her mother favored Man Bao even more. Although he loved her before, he would not pamper her like this. However, Wu Wulang was already convinced. He glanced at him and said, "Of course it is. Didn't mother say it many times? If Man Bao hadn't been the reincarnation of a fairy, how could Master Tianzun cure mother?" Jojo Lang thought about it too. He glanced at the stupid fifth brother. He was very annoyed. He didn't think of this until now. Yes, if Man Bao was not the reincarnation of a fairy, how could his mother's illness get better overnight? It is unbelievable that I am healthier than ordinary people now. There's another chapter at 5 in the afternoon. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 385. Man Bao and the others were not the first to join in. In fact, there were quite a few people watching the cows outside the grass shed at this time. But most of them came from nearby to join in the fun, and none of them wanted to go into the grass shed to look at them, for fear that the county government would rely on them and ask them to return the cows they looked at on credit. So when Jojo Lang and the others took out their household registrations and wanted to go in, the official who moved a table and sat at the entrance of the thatched shed took a look at them and asked, "They all belong to the same family?" Joe who quickly took out his household registration and said, "No, I belong to another family." The official made the registration, waved his hand and said, "Okay, let's go in. Everyone go in immediately. There are only cows in the straw shed, and a cowherd who takes care of the cows." Seeing these four people walking and watching, they looked like laymen, so he leaned on a cow and asked, "Do you know how to look at a cow?" Man Bao nodded slightly, while Johu and the Zhou family brothers shook their heads together. The cowherd looked curiously at the nodding Man Bao, and asked, "You know?" After Man Bao decided to buy cattle on credit, he went to see the cattle in the farm, and also asked Bei Zhuangtu who went to buy cattle at that time, and now he has a lot of goods in his stomach. So Man Bao proudly raised his small chin and said, "Of course I know. When looking at a cow, you must first look at its teeth. A cow around 4 years old is the best, so it depends on whether it has grown permanent teeth." The cowherd nodded, indicating that he was right. Man Bao became even more proud, and continued, "It also depends on the hooves. The hooves are big and straight, and the hooves are dense and firm." That's right, the cowherd said with a smile. "The little lady is here to pick and choose. Is there anyone she likes?" Man Bao blinked and looked at the cows standing in 2 rows on both sides. She was a little bit blind, Bai Zhuangtu said that, and she remembered that too. At that time, she also took a look at the teeth in the cow's mouth, but what kind of teeth are deciduous teeth, and what kind of teeth are permanent teeth that grow after falling out? The cowherd understood it at a glance, and he burst out laughing. He just said, "How can a doll who is only 7 or 8 years old know how to look at cows? Okay, I'll help you choose. Do you want bullocks? These are all good." Man Bao looked along his hands, and found that the hairs of the cows he was pointing at were all shiny, and the bulls looked energetic when they looked at them. Seeing the bamboo tags hanging around their necks, Man Bao couldn't help but step forward to look at them, and found that one was written on it, so she asked, "What is this tag for?" "The quality of the cattle is determined by the price. Which one do you like? You can turn it over to see the number of the cattle. Just take it and ask the price. This is the first-class steer, and the price is also the most expensive batch." Man Bao turned over, and sure enough, there was a string of numbers behind it. Every cow has a number. If you want to sell it, you have to report it to the county government first. When the cow is old, you have to slaughter it, and you have to report it to the government. If the cow accidentally dies of illness, you have to notify the county government. Man Bao wrote down its serial number and asked, "Then do you know how much this cow costs?" The cowherd smiled and said, "Of course I know. I have written down the price of each cow here. This one costs 500 yuan. Of course Zhou Hu was taken aback and took a step back. Man Bao didn't expect it to be so expensive. After touching it, he asked, "Is there any cheaper but good cow?" "That's the second-class steer. It's impossible for you to buy a 4-year-old steer. You should buy a steer that is about 3 years old because they were the first batch of people to come in." The cowherd was quite enthusiastic about them. The main reason is that the servants sitting at the door of the thatched shed didn't want to talk to him, and he was the only cow in the thatched shed. Maybe he was used to being lonely, and this opening was what he was best at, so he was eloquent for a while. "Stand up." Leading the 4 people to look at all the second-class steers, list their advantages and disadvantages, and then suggest a few bulls that they can buy. Man Bao and Zhou Lang got together and whispered together. After discussing, they unanimously decided to choose the second steer numbered Lo 398. Man Bao raised his head again to confirm with the cowherd, "This one only costs 500 coins, right?" "Good." After hesitating, Zhou Hu also chose a steer, which was a little worse than what the old Zhou family chose, and the price was only 200. He asked Man Bao to help him read the serial number, and wrote it down, then went to the official to ask the price. Hearing them asking about the price, the messenger's expression improved a lot. He flipped through the brochure, and after quoting the same price as the cowherd, he asked, "Do you want credit?" Man Bao nodded again, and asked, "Should I go to the county government to credit the money first and then come to get the cattle?" The official nodded, "Not bad. Then take another look, is my cow worth 3,500 yuan?" The messenger rolled his eyes and said, "It's 3,500 yuan, hurry up and go on credit, it's almost time for lunch." Man Bao immediately took Zhou Lang to the county government office for credit. Yang Heshu was standing in the county office sadly. Obviously, today's situation was too different from what he had imagined, and he was somewhat frustrated. As soon as he turned around, he saw Man Bao and the others coming in. His eyes lit up immediately. He waved and asked with a smile, "Are you here for credit?" "Yes." Man Bao rushed up and said, "I just selected a cow, and I want 3,500 yuan. I brought some copper coins, so I just want to borrow a few taels on credit, magistrate, is that okay?" "Of course you can," Yang Hesha said with a smile, "you can even credit 1 or 2 taels." After speaking, Yang Heshu looked at Zhou Hu expectantly. Zhou Hu's face turned red, and he lowered his head and said, "I, the younger one, also chose a cow, and it costs 3,200 yuan, so I only borrow a few taels on credit." Yang and Shu were delighted to send out 2 cows on credit at once, and personally led them to the accountant next door to borrow money on credit with a smile. Master Zhang had already made preparations. He first got up and bowed to County Magistrate Yang, then checked the household registration information of the 2 families, and then quickly filled out the loan documents for them to sign. Man Bao picked up the pen and was about to write. Master Zhang frowned, pressed it up with his palm and said, "Isn't there a man here in your family, he should sign it?" Hearing this, Man Bao handed the pen to Zhou Lang without even thinking about it. Zhou Lang muttered, disliked the trouble of Zhang's master book, but he still held the pen, trembling, and carefully wrote his name on it. Master Zhang took a look at the crooked words, but he didn't dislike them very much. He just frowned and pushed the red seal forward, letting him draw it. Zhou Hu was much simpler. He picked up a pen and carefully drew a circle on the signature, and then pressed his handprint on it. Master Zhang took another serious look, then gave them the cut silver pieces, and told them, "When you get the cow, bring me the number plate and put it in the register. If the cow gets sick or has an accident in the future, you have to get it report to the county government with the number plate." Zhou Lang and Zhou Hu agreed, and went out happily holding the silver pieces. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 386. Chapter 385, Turning Silver into Copper Plates. Yang and Shu were also very happy, and they walked out together. Man Bao said to Zhou Lang and Zhou Hu, "You go, we will wait for you here in the grass shed." He turned his head and said happily to Yang Heshu, "Do you want to see the cow we selected? Actually, it is not my favorite. I prefer the steer standing on the third left of it. Unfortunately, it is too expensive. But even so, I will still like it very much, and I will treat it well in the future." Yang Heshu nodded with a smile. "Okay, let's go and have a look." He glanced curiously at the direction where Zhou Lang and the others left, and asked, "What are your brothers doing?" "They're going to get the money." "Oh, is it a copper coin?" Man Bao nodded. Yang Heshu thought he understood, and asked with a smile, "To buy a cow, there are quite a lot of people from your family. Besides the three of you, who else is here?" "My second brother, he sells bamboo baskets and tofu over there." "Hey, your family can still make tofu?" "Of course, our family's tofu is delicious. It's the only one in the county. Every time we make it, it's not enough to sell." Yang Heshu laughed and said, "Then I'll try it if I get a chance." The two gossiped and went into the shed together to see the two cows they had chosen. Neither the messenger nor the cowherd expected that the magistrate would come in person, so they quickly stood up and saw that Man Bao was familiar with him, and their attitude towards Man Bao and Wu Wulang was much better. A messenger went straight ahead to guide them, and went into the shed to snatch the cowherd's work. Although Yang Heshu has no actual experience in seeing cattle, he has done his homework like Man Bao, so when he sees Man Bao's cattle, he first asks about his age and teeth. This time the cowherd came in handy, squeezed to the front to chatter. Yang Heshu couldn't stop nodding. It was different after doing homework. Anyway, he understood everything, although he still couldn't get away from the cowherd. The difference between the teeth can be seen in the mouth of the cow. Yang Heshu listened with gusto, looked at the cows that Zhou Hu had selected, and then ordered the two cows to be led to the gate of the grass shed. The county seat of Lujian County is not big, not to mention the county government office and the pawn shop are still on the same street, so Zhou Lang and Zhou Hu ran to it, and came back soon. It's just that they didn't have a rucksack on them when they went, but they carried a rucksack when they came back. At the moment it was carried on Zhou Hu's shoulders, and Zhou Lang was running beside him. The two of them ran to the door of the thatched shed, grinned at County Magistrate Yang, and said, "We brought all the money." Zhou Lang laid out the credit loan documents, took out 5 strings of copper plates from the bag, and then took out 3 slings of money, and then looked at the official with piercing eyes. The official glanced at the credit documents, and was sure that it was money on credit from the county government. He didn't think there was anything unusual and accepted the 3,500 when he gave, and then asked Zhou Lang to sign and make a deposit, so that the cattle could be taken away. Up. After Zhou Lang finished signing, the official took off the number plate on the cow's neck and handed it to him, saying, "Just take it in and make a record." Then he looked at Zhou Hu. Zhou Hu didn't expect to be able to buy the cow with copper coins. After he was stunned for a moment, he immediately took out 3,200 yuan from his bag and gave it to the official, and took the cow in the same way. Yang Heshu stood watching from the sidelines. After a long silence, He looked at Manbao, tapped her lightly with his fingers and smiled. You, I never thought that the first loss I, Yang Heshu, suffered was from you. Master County Magistrate, you have not suffered a disadvantage. It may take 2 years for me to pay back the money. Your interest rate is too high. Yang Heshu shook his head. This is already the least amount of interest ever seen before. Precedents are also the first ones. Why don't you create a precedent yourself? Yang Heshu frowned, and shook his head after a long time and said, No. He is a newcomer to Lujian County, and he is also a newcomer to the officialdom. The credit business is already out of the ordinary. If he sets a precedent, his life will not be peaceful in the next few years. Although he wouldn't just leave in despair given his family background, it would be very annoying if someone was watching everything he did. Manbao looked back at the cows full of grass sheds regretfully, and said, In this case, I'm afraid it will be difficult for you to sell other cows on credit. Everyone is not very courageous. The main reason is that the natural disaster came suddenly last year. I know whether God will reward me this year. Yang Heshu said, Since there was a lot of water logging last year, there shouldn't be much rain this year. Manbao nodded, Yes, so there may be a drought. Yang Heshu stared. Zhou Lang and Zhou Hu took out another document from the county government office. Their faces were full of joy. Far away, Zhou Lang waved to her and said, Manbao, it's all done, we have cows at home. To Yang Heshu, Zhou Lang's senses are also very good, and he said quickly, Master County Magistrate, last time you came to our village, we didn't know that you were the county magistrate. Next time you go, we will definitely treat you well. I invite you back to my house for dinner, and I will give you all the eggs I touch. Yang Heshu expressed his gratitude with a smile, and asked Manbao, I may not eat tofu for a long time, your second brother is in the place that sells agricultural products. Zhou Lang immediately said cleverly, Why do you send someone to go? I will send it to you in a while, and you can ask for a few dollars. Yang Heshu thought for a while and said, I want to entertain some guests tonight, so bring some more. You can take it. After all, let the entourage behind you give the money. The entourage took out a bunch of copper coins and gave them to Zhou Lang. Zhou Lang was taken aback. Well, even if beans are a little more expensive now, and tofu has risen to 3 yuan, there is no need to give him so much, right? Zhou Lang asked in a low voice, Dare to ask my brother, is there a lot of people invited by the county magistrate? Why are you asking this? I just want to estimate how much tofu will be sent to you. The entourage said, There are 5 or 6 people. Zhou Lang knew it in his mind, the county magistrate looked so rich, it would be impossible to cook just one dish for a table of banquets, right? So he thought about it, counted out 30 yuan from the string of money, pushed the rest back, and said with a smile, Don't worry, I will deliver the tofu myself in a while. Our tofu is cut into large pieces, plus nowadays food is much more expensive, even the beans are expensive, so I sell it for 3 pennies a piece, and I will send you 12 yuan in a while. If you have a lot of soaking, you can cook it tomorrow morning, or I will try it too. My tofu is really authentic and delicious. The entourage waved his hand to show that he understood, and took the rest of the money to let Zhou Lang leave. After Zhou's family had left, the entourage walked back behind Yang Heshu and said in a low voice, Young master, you seem to be quite honest and not greedy. Tofu costs 1 yuan for 3 yuan, and you will get 2 more for 10 yuan. Yang Heshu nodded slightly, and ordered, Go to the silver building and ask how much copper plate can be exchanged for 1 tael of silver now. By the way, besides the silver building, where else can you exchange copper plates? The entourage thought for a while and said, It seems that pawn shops are also available. Then ask them together. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 387. Thursday Lang and Friday Lang stood on both sides of the cow, one on the left and the other on the right. They walked forward together, protecting the cow with their heads held high, while the rope of the cow was in Man Bao's hands. Zhou Hu led his own cow and followed behind, gently stroking its back with one hand, and he was also overjoyed. A group of people turned into the side street, and from a distance, Zhou Lang yelled at the front, "Second brother! Let Zhou Lang, who was serving tofu for someone, shake his hand and almost crush the tofu." He raised his head angrily, but when he saw the cow in Man Bao's hand, he froze, and with a snap, he really put the cow in his hand. The tofu was crumbled. Zhou Lang was still in a trance when he returned to the village, so Zhou Lang pushed the cart, holding the rope of the cow tightly in his hand, and walking back to protect the cow with a deep foot and a shallow foot. As for Man Bao, she is now sitting on the back of a bull like a visiting king, looking down with pleasure on a group of children running towards her in the village. Among them, the two heads are the first. He was playing with his friends under the big banyan tree at the entrance of the village. When he looked up, he saw a cow, and there was a person who looked very much like my sister-in-law on the cow's back. Then he turned his eyes away, and he saw his father walking beside the cow, and then looked at the fourth uncle pushing the cart next to him, and he knew he was right. The two heads jumped up and rushed over, shouting, "Father, whose cow is this?" Tuesday Lang showed a dreamy smile, and said cheerfully, "Our family." Although Ertou had already guessed it, he still couldn't help but let out an ah. He pulled Zhou Lang and said, "Father, I want to sit on the back of an ox, and I want to ride on an ox." "Go, go, go." Zhou Lang pushed his son aside, and said, "You are so heavy, what if the cow gets tired? Your sister-in-law is sitting on it." There were quite a few children rushing up, and they surrounded them all at once. The cow stomped uncomfortably, and Zhou Lang quickly stretched out his hand to appease it, and told everyone to disperse. But the movement here quickly spread to the village, and even some adults came to watch the fun. Seeing that Zhou Lang and Zhou Hu were both holding cows in their hands, they were extremely surprised. Everyone was even more surprised when they learned that it was on credit from the county government. Someone really went to the county government to credit cattle? The entrance of the village suddenly became lively. By the time the old Zhou found out and was running out with his shoes on, Zhou Lang and the others had already reached the door with difficulty. Old Zhou rushed out and saw the ox rope in Zhou Lang's hand, and then glanced at the girl sitting on the ox's back. He was anxious, stared directly, and his feet were weak and he was about to fall down. Zhou Dalan, who followed and ran out, quickly supported his father, and quickly asked someone to carry Lao Zhou's head home. Seeing that his father was so excited that he was about to faint, Man Bao stopped sitting on the bull's back, and moved his buttocks to slide down. Zhou Lang quickly hugged her down, rushed up, and looked at his father with concern. Old Zhou was dizzy for a while, and as soon as Zhou Dalan helped him, he woke up, but at this moment he was lazy, didn't want to talk, and didn't want to talk to anyone. Man Bao squeezed away a few brothers and sisters, squeezed to old Zhou side, and held his hand with concern. "Father, didn't I tell you that I want to give you a surprise? Why are you so careless?" "Hi, I fainted after just looking at it." The villagers watching the fun couldn't see the scene inside, but they heard what Man Bao said, and someone laughed loudly. "Man Bao, your father is not happy, but surprised. Is it to scare you?" "Ha ha ha ha." Old Zhou couldn't lie down anymore. He grabbed Zhou Dalan and Zhou Lang's hands and stood up, cursing to the outside. "Fart, who said I was scared? I am obviously happy." Old Zhou almost cried when he said this, but he still squeezed a smile on his sad face. I'm happy, my old Zhou's family can afford a cow. But what should I do if my heart hurts, especially if this is a cow that came back on credit, the interest?" When old Zhou thought of the interest, he immediately regained his energy. He didn't know how much money this cowgirl had spent on credit. So he waved his hand and said, "My cow has just come back, don't get so close, so as not to frighten it, it's spring, everyone should do whatever you want. Dallin, send one to your uncles and brothers." Joe Dallin immediately led his younger brothers to send them off. The villagers smiled in understanding, and left happily. Yesterday, old Joe Tou was bragging with them at the entrance of the village. With such an expensive interest, only a fool would go on credit. I've never heard that you have to pay on credit to buy such a large item. Doesn't that mean you have to press the coffin book in advance? But after turning around, it took only 1 day for their family to get a cow back on credit. Seeing his reaction, they didn't know. Everyone can guess that this matter is mostly caused by their precious daughter. Jojo Lang and his brothers don't have the guts yet. Therefore, there may be a storm of goddaughter breaking out in the old Joe family. Although everyone wants to watch the fun, it is not easy to force the crowd to watch, so they can only leave. As soon as everyone went out, they went to Joe Hu's house. As you can see just now, Joe Hu also brought back a cow. In Kilai village, apart from the Bai family, only the village head's family has cattle, so the cattle are quite rare, especially the cattle are still on credit with the county government. Although everyone doesn't want credit, everyone still wants to hear Joe Hu talk about how they got the cow on credit. Once the people who join in the fun leave and the gate is closed, only the old Joe family is left in the yard. Old Joe looked at his daughter, he was a little bit reluctant, so he turned his head and said to Feng Shi, go to the vegetable garden and call your mother back." He had to ask his old wife to give him a full meal. His heart hurt too much. Man Bao hadn't noticed what his father was thinking, and nodded happily, "I want to tell mother." Man Bao took out the wrapped household registration from the cloth bag and handed it to Lao Zhou. "Father, you can keep it." Old Joe took it in a daze, and asked, "Why is this thing in your hand?" "Father, you forgot, credit cows have to bring their household registration with them." "Yes, that's what the chief seemed to say yesterday." Old Joe turned his small head and asked, "Where did you come from?" "Mother gave it to me." Old Joe Tou let out an ah, and when Qian pushed the door open, he met his red eyes, with tears in his eyes, and said angrily, "Mother, why don't you tell me, just let Man Bao go on credit?" Qian frowned and said, "I don't know that Man Bao is going on credit." You don't know how to give her the household registration." Man Bao said she wanted it, so I gave it to her. She has always been sensible, and she will never use it for nonsense. It's no wonder that old Joe believed her, he didn't believe that his old wife couldn't figure it out, she was deliberately hiding it from him. Qian Shi said, "Okay, what a big deal. It's a good thing to have a big addition to the family. Let Data go to the market to cut a piece of meat and come back to celebrate at night." "Don't eat," the old man Joe shouted, "the family is in debt, can you eat?" Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 388. Only then did the old man remember to ask, "Man Bao, how much money did you pay on credit with the yamen, and how much do you want to repay?" Man Bao said in a daze, 3 taels. Old Joe heaved a sigh of relief, "Only 2 or 3. Man Bao nodded affirmatively. The old Zhutu immediately said to Qian, "Hurry up and open the money box, and let the boss and the second brother settle the credit account tomorrow. Is the money in the yamen so easy to credit? By the way, how do you calculate the interest? After a day of credit, he can't ask us for a month's interest, right? Man Bao, please do the math quickly, how much is the interest for a day?" Qian went back to open the money box, and soon came out with 3 slings of copper coins. Old Joe asked her to give the money to Joe Dallin. Joe Dallin took it hesitantly, but couldn't help subconsciously looking at Man Bao. Man Bao saw that his father was sitting on the threshold with limp hands and feet, unwilling to move, so he simply sat down on the ground, Facing him, "Father, we borrowed silver, so we have to pay back the silver, not the copper coins." "Then pay back the money," old Jotiu said to Joe Dallin, "go to the county town to find a silver building and exchange it for money." Manbao quietly said, 1,200 wen can be exchanged for one tael of silver. Old Joe's eyes widened all at once, his feet and hands were no longer soft, he jumped up and shouted, "Why?" Jojo Lang hurriedly stepped forward to appease him, and told them all about their cattle credit today from beginning to end. Loss. Old Jotiu said thoughtfully, "Is there any silver that is worse than official silver? Then let's change to that kind, and the Yamen will accept it." The Zhou family brothers all stared wide-eyed. Zhou Dallin and Jojo Lang did not expect such an operation, but Jojo Lang and Jojo Lang thought about it and did not have the courage to do it. As for Manbao, she directly gave her thumbs up and praised her father. "Father, you are really amazing, you can even think of this." Old Joe glanced at her and said, "I'll settle the score with you after I settle this matter. If your mother doesn't beat you, I will beat you too." Manbao was unhappy, and said, "Father, aren't you afraid that the harvest will not be good this year, so you want to save money to prevent it?" Old Joe couldn't help shouting, "Since you know, why do you want to go on credit? If we don't pay it back this year, it will be the same next year and the next year. Dad, we don't lose anything on credit. It's no wonder if you don't lose money, such a high interest rate." Manbao couldn't help but said, "The interest rate is not high at all, Dad, those who borrow money like the fourth brother to gamble are considered high interest rates. Although I think the Yamen can actually lower the interest rate." Jojo Lang, who was just watching but was suddenly hit by a stone. Manbao is not an ignorant child, and she knows her father well, and knows why he reacted so strongly. Seeing that her brothers and sisters-in-law are all there, and everyone's faces are somewhat worried, she simply asks Titiou to find her root roast in the kitchen. The branches that passed. The old Joe's kitchen has always been stocked with burnt sticks and branches, because everyone found that these things are particularly prominent when writing on the ground and stones. Datu and the others like to use it to practice calligraphy. Manbao showed her father a drawing of a branch. "Father, you didn't say that, can one cow do the work of two adults? Buying a cow is equivalent to having two more brothers to work for you, son. How much land can be plowed intensively? The difference between plowing once and plowing twice may not be very big. It is estimated that there will be a few caddies of more grain per acre of land, but after plowing twice, sprinkle more fertilizer, carefully weed and catch some insects, that 1 acre there may be more than 10 or 20 caddies of grain. But doing all this requires manpower. One more cow means 2 more people. How much work can 2 people do in a day? How much work can you do in a year? And how much are these jobs worth in terms of value?" Listening to Manbao counting, Lao Zhou swallowed his saliva. Then Manbao added, "Father, our cow is only 3 years old now. It can work for 7 or 8 years, or even 10 years. If you earn so much in 1 year, how much will you earn in 10 years? Jojo Lang clumsily calculated in his heart, and said, "Isn't this equivalent to getting 2 eldest sons for nothing?" Old Joe couldn't help but glared at him and said, "What nonsense, it's your son, can it give you a grandson?" Manbao became excited, "Okay, just marry him a wife when he grows up." Everyone. But old Jotiu pondered, "It makes sense, we will sell the calves after they are born, and sell them for 3 taels per head. How much would that be?" Qian interrupted his daydream, and asked, "Manbao, where is the number plate of the cow? Take it, mother, and keep it." Old Jotiu immediately came back to his senses. "No, even if the cow is worth buying, we have to pay back the money first, we can't let the Yamen eat our interest." "Father, what if God doesn't reward you this year?" Manbao said, "don't you have to keep the money for self-defense?" This is also the willingness of the old Jotiu who has always been unwilling to spend money. The family always needs some savings, and is prepared to save lives even in the event of natural or man-made disasters. So he thinks that if you earn less, you can earn less, and it's okay for the sons to work hard. Don't worry if you have money in your hands. But Lao Tzu has another kind of insistence besides that: you can't owe debts, especially debts with interest. It's not that Lao Zhou has never owed people money, but there are two kinds of money that he has always been unwilling to owe. As long as he has money, he will pay it back. One is that the other party's family is not rich, and he feels uneasy about owing such money. The second type is a debt with interest, which means that every day he owes more money, which is more fatal to him than the first type, because every night he feels his heart flutter. Trembling. But Man Bao thinks this kind of credit loan is okay. She said, "Father, our family can afford the interest. We have 3 years. So we don't need to use the life-saving money kept at home to pay back the interest money. Because now we can borrow money to buy cattle on credit, but if a natural or man-made disaster occurs and we need money urgently, our family cannot borrow money from the yamen at the current interest rate." Old Jotiu, the interest. The interest rate is not very high. The reason why Man Bao can say this is because the information Keek searched for her indicates that the interest rate does not appear to be very high even in the future. Qian glanced at old Zhou and asked Man Bao, "When do you plan to pay it back?" Man Bao said confidently, "Short is this winter, long is next winter." Mrs. Qian nodded, "If God rewards me this year, the family will pay back the money. The cattle are bought for use by the family. If you have money, you can pay it back. If you don't have money, you still have the family." This is what makes Man Bao feel confident and bold to do it. Old Joe couldn't help but glanced at his wife. Was he planning to spoil his daughter to heaven? Qian said flatly, "Man Bao is the reincarnation of a fairy. I don't believe her luck will be bad." When the old Joe's family heard it, they immediately lifted their spirits, and even the old Joe's face relaxed a lot. "Keek, it is somewhat certain now, and Mrs. Qian seems to think so too. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 389. A cow was added to the family, so a cowshed must be built. Lao Tzu wandered around the 2 courtyards for a long time, and finally chose the thatched cottage where Zhou Lang and his family lived temporarily, and now it is a room for storing sundries. He asked his sons to clean up the contents inside, dry the moisture inside with a torch, and then carried a lot of straw in and paved it, making it clean and warm, and the cowshed was considered finished. This is even better than the cowshed built by Zhou's family. Satisfied, the old Zhou walked around the cow, then stroked it gently and said, "It's cold now, you can stay warm in the house, and you won't get sick. In summer, I'll ask some boys to repel mosquitoes for you, keep it so that you can sleep soundly in the house." Old Jotiu said to it affectionately, "So you must eat well and work hard." When old Jotiu walked out of Zhou's house again, his face was already indifferent, with a hint of complacency on his face. The villagers listened all night and didn't hear the old Zhou's family beating the child, so they could only stop watching the show. When they saw Lao Tzu the next day, they asked about the credit cattle. "Uncle Jin, I heard from Zhou that you have taken advantage of the county government." Old Jotiu gave a bah and said, "I think it's a big deal, so you're going to take it, thinking that the interest of 36 yuan a month is so easy to pay." The villagers just laughed and asked in a low voice, "Your family really left the cow?" Old Zhou couldn't help but rolled his eyes and said, "If you don't stay, can the yamen return it to me? This is something from the government yamen." "This is true." "Then when will your family plan to credit this account? The interest for this month is quite a lot." Lijhan didn't say that credit is not allowed for a day or two. "You can just take the money and pay it back." Treat it as a big addition to the family. After all, you didn't lose interest, did you? It's true, Man Bao, why didn't you discuss such a big matter with you adults? Didn't you follow on Tuesday? It's not a decision that Man Bao can make, right? Old Zhutu disliked their noise, and said, my family Man Bao said that my family will not lose money on this cow on credit. Why are you not losing money? How do I know? I can't understand that long series of arithmetic, said old Joe Head confidently. Anyway, as long as you don't lose money. Then you don't pay back the money on credit. Fart, that's the money from the yamen, dare I not pay it back, old Joe Tiu said, but I don't have any money now, it would be best if you can lend me some. If you can't, you can only wait until next year. Everyone was silent for a moment, and then they all talked about being poor. Yeah, everyone's life was difficult last year. There are not many people in this family who have surplus food, let alone surplus money. Old Joe Tiu had expected this a long time ago. He had a vague feeling that his family's current savings could not be said to be the third in Kilai village, but it was definitely ranked in the top 10. Even he dared not take out money to buy cattle at once, let alone other people lending him money to pay off his debts. It's not a matter of life and death. Everyone was addicted to their mouths and knew what they wanted to know, so they said goodbye and went home. Man Bao came back from school and happened to see them disperse, so he couldn't help saying to the better connected families, because there are many people who are hesitating now, you should also go to the county government to bring back a cow on credit. People who are encouraged, they are not stupid. Man Bao watched them leave regretfully. The old Zhou Tiu took her home and said, don't talk nonsense, what if they go to buy a cow on credit and they don't turn around? What? Stop it, old Zhou Tiu didn't explain too much to his daughter, and changed the subject. Didn't you say you were going to plant privet seeds on the mountain a few years ago? Have you done that? Don't you dislike wasting effort, and you may not be able to work, so you won't let us grow it? At that time, we couldn't finish all the work in the field. How could we have time to dig pits and plant privet seeds? But now, don't we have cattle? Old Joe said, go, call your brothers, come on, go into the mountain now and take out the branch of that tree, I listened before, just stick that thing in. Man Bao said, it's cuttings. I've asked people, and basically they can survive. As long as you can live, go. Man Bao rushed out to find some brothers. Joe Dallin and the others are busy composting. Early this morning, their father said that since they have cattle, they should pay more attention to tending a few acres of land. In this way, in order not to make enough fertilizer, they still have to pile up another pile of manure. Joe Dallin felt that the branches on the mountain were about to be balled by them. So upon hearing Man Bao's words, Joe Dallin and the others had a feeling that it was true. Even Zhou Zhoulang, who has always been diligent, couldn't help sitting on the ground, looking up at the sky, and sighed, I always feel like I bought a cow, it's not very labor-saving. Siwulio nodded repeatedly, and also squatted on the ground. Although he didn't want to move, Joe Dallin led his two younger brothers up the mountain to dig a hole the next day. In the eyes of Joe Dallin and others, Ligustrum lucidum itself is a wild tree, so to plant it, of course, there is no need to open up the mountain. They just want to open it, but Lao Zhou will not agree to them to go to the effort. So they only found a thick and soft soil on Joe Dallin's mountain behind the house, cut down or dug the nearby thorns, dug a hole, and cleared the weeds around the hole. Then insert the ligustrum twig that was folded back yesterday evening, pour some water and it's almost done. Man Bao just threw a small handful of farmyard manure to them. There was no way, she didn't have any of the nutrient solutions that DRD said. Anyway, that is also the liquid that promotes its germination, so she is not in a hurry to promote it, let it germinate slowly. It took Joe Dallin 3 days to dig about 30 holes on the mountain and plant the privet branches cut into 32 sections. It's not that they are slow, but because there are many trees and weeds on the mountain, even if they just dig a hole and clean up the roots and weeds beside the hole, it will take a long time. And the lingering cold wave also came to an end. The spring breeze blew all night. Manbeo changed the cotton-padded clothes the next day, and then went to school with a small bookcase on his back, but before noon, it was raining spring rain outside. Manbao looked out and said, "It's time to sow rice seeds." At the same time, MRSGN was also watching the spring rain, turned around and told MRSGN, "Find out all the rakes, and go to the field in the afternoon to have a look. It's almost ready to sow rice seeds." Old Jotioyu also said, "The boss and I will go to the field to get it. You take the boss to pick the seeds again, and the bean seeds will also be picked. When the rice seeds are sown, the beans will also be planted. Chien should go down." Old Joe took out his cigarette pouch but didn't smoke it. He looked at Joe Dallin and said, "Let's go and see the wheat fields. That's summer food." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 390. The wheat in the field was still green. Old Joe reached out and touched the thin husks on the ears of wheat. The fine spring rain wet his hands gently. He looked down at the wheat roots in the wheat field that were rapidly absorbing the spring rain, and couldn't help but say happily, "This rain is so good." Joe Dallin wiped the rain on his face, nodded repeatedly, "Yes, it happened just in time to grout the wheat." Old Jotioyu spent a day walking all the fields planted with winter wheat. Like him, there were quite a few people in the village who came out to look at the wheat fields in the rain. The vast fields are dotted with people wearing coir raincoats walking back and forth. On this day, many people were drenched by the rain in Lujiang County. Among them those who got wet while walking in the fields were the happiest. County Magistrate Yang, who was also drenched by the rain, was not very happy. He quickly walked into the main room, pulled off the coir raincoat and threw it to his followers. In the hands of the servants. The master who greeted him paused for a moment, and quickly asked, "My lord, is there something wrong with the front office?" "It's okay, is that why you are even more angry?" Yang Hesha sat down on the chair, and couldn't help frowning. "Is the interest rate of 1 tael of silver a month and 12 cents high?" The master said, "Not high." "It's not high, why is no one coming to credit cattle?" Yang Hesha said, "It's been 5 days, and there are only 6 households in Lujiang County who have come to borrow steers on credit. Now that a new round of spring plowing is about to start, there is no one." "Exciting." The master smiled and said, "Why should you be anxious, my lord? For a poor family, let alone 3 or 4 taels, even 3 or 4 pennies are a big deal. If you really want to sell the cow on credit, you might as well relax some requirements. I believe it will take less than 3 days. Cattle can be sold on credit. If you relax it further, you will lend the cattle to the squires on credit." The master smiled and said, "Why not? Anyway, cattle are used for farming." Yang Hesha glanced at the master indifferently. The master froze, and said with a stiff smile, "My lord." Yang Hesha flicked his robe and asked, "Does this officer look like an idiot?" After all, he got up and left. The master froze, trying to catch up, but couldn't hold back, and blushed for a while. Wan Tian, Yang Hesha's follower, quickly chased after him. "Master, why are you getting angry just talking about it?" Yang Hesha snorted. Wan Tian said, "Actually, I think what the master said is right. So many cows need to eat a lot of fodder every day, and they can't get credit all the time. The young master is upset when he sees it, isn't he?" "What do you know?" Yang Hesha said angrily, "I sent so many cows. Do you think it's a business of buying and selling? Do you know that every time a cow is sold on credit, the county government and I will lose money? I don't care about them being like the Zhou family who first bought the cattle on credit and then made me a fortune. It's because they are poor, so I'm willing to take such a harmless loss," Yang Hesha said, but the profits from this loss. What's the deal with the squire who is not short of money? Wan Tian had a question on his forehead, obviously he didn't understand. Yang Heshe patted him on the head bitterly, and said, "Why are you so stupid, worse than a child, thanks to the fact that you have been studying with me for so many years?" Yang Heshe went back to the house and asked after changing into fresh clothes, "You know that kid, the one named Man Bao, who borrowed silver and exchanged it for copper plates to buy cattle, how much did I lose?" Wan Tian said with a confused face, "Didn't the young master say that what the county government borrowed was silver, and what they wanted back was also silver? Although there is a price difference between copper and silver, we actually did not lose money. If you say you're stupid, don't believe me. The county government didn't lose money on credit, but we lost money when we sold the cows. When we bought these cows, the county government and I paid silver, not copper coins." Yang Heshe said, "This batch of cattle to be borrowed on credit is all priced at cost, and the price is set in silver. I didn't know there was such a big difference between silver and copper coins." Yang Heshe paused and said, "So, we are putting every cow in the cow shed at a loss." What made him angry was that no one came to take advantage of him in such a loss-making business. He was really pissed off. Wan Tian finally understood the relationship during this period, and couldn't help becoming anxious. "Then young master, why did you deliberately ask people who came to buy cattle on credit at the gate of the county government office to first credit silver, and then exchange it for copper coins to buy cattle? Isn't that cheating yourself?" "It doesn't count." Yang Heshe calmed down a little after taking a sip of tea, and said, "Although I paid a little money, the bulk of the money was paid by the county government, and it was also the county government that got the hang of it, but at least the people are left alone affordable, isn't it?" Wan Tian, forgive him for being stupid, he really doesn't know the difference between this period. Isn't his young master the magistrate of Lujiang County now? Didn't you cheat yourself if you cheated the county government? These people are poor. One cow is 2 more laborers. Their lives are easier. But those country gentry, they are not short of money. If the conditions are relaxed, they will definitely take all the cows without blinking an eye." Yang Heshe said, "Why should I suffer and let them take advantage?" Wan Tian couldn't help muttering, "It's a loss anyway." "What do you know?" Yang Heshe knocked him on the head, and said, "Some losses are reaped, and some losses are not. Lujiang County was also severely affected by the disaster last year, and the tax was only exempted for 1 year. This year's autumn harvest will have to pay taxes. Forget it, you don't even understand." "Then young master, if no one comes to credit the cows, what will happen to the cows in the cowshed? What else can I do? I can only divide it." "Huh?" Wan Tian opened his mouth wide. Yang Heshe waved his hand and said, "Okay, on the way back just now, I heard the old officials in the Yamen say that the spring plowing will start again after the spring rain. You go, call Master Zhang and the others, and let him inform Li Zhang. Let's discuss how to divide the cattle." Wan Tian closed his mouth and asked hesitantly, "Really? It doesn't matter, keep these cows and feed them," Yang Heshe said, "distribute them to each li, so as to relieve the pressure of spring plowing. As a county magistrate, his main duty is to persuade farmers and mulberry farmers." How to persuade Nong Sang? In addition to going to the mountains and the countryside to do ideological construction and encouragement for farmers, sometimes they also need to provide certain material and technical support. Supplies, including but not limited to seeds, agricultural tools and cattle, etc. Seeds are generally supported on a large scale, and basically every family can get some. Of course, such activities vary depending on the situation of each county. At least as far as Man Bao remembers, her family has never been given seeds from the Yamen. As for farm tools, they will be given to those who are particularly poor, whose farm tools are seriously damaged, or simply don't have them. Such precious things as farm cattle are generally the common property of the people in a mile, that is, they are used and cared for in turn.